How's it, everyone? This is Lolcohol. Today I'm going to be speaking about the Huntress Ascendancy, the Amazon. I'm actually very excited for this class. This looks like it could be really strong with a couple of caveats. So currently we don't have the patch notes, so we don't know all the changes to the passive tree, skill gems, we don't know all the support gems, so there's a lot of missing pieces to the puzzle. But this class on paper looks really cool, and I'm going to speak about each of these nodes and how I think they could work and why I think that this could be a really strong class. So starting out at the top, we have Elemental Infusion. When you consume a power, endurance, or frenzy charge, you trigger Infuse Weapon and gain Cold Infusion. This currently is a little bit confusing. I think the way that this works is that you generate a charge and then you consume it and then you get your infusion. And then the question is this an attack by itself where Infuse Weapon is an attack that you do, or is this damage that is added to another type of attack? The wording implies that it is something that you add to another attack because it doesn't specify weapon type or anything like that. It says, grants your weapon infusion, projectile attacks with that weapon consume infusions to infuse the first projectile fired, causing it to explode at the end of the flight. Then we have the Cold, Fire, and Lightning Infused, converts 100% of Fizz to Cold, and then there's this explosion radius. One of the big things though is this over here, attack damage 612%. If this is something that you add to another attack, this looks like it could be really strong. Even if it is just an attack by itself, it could also be really good. I'm hoping we get more information about this. When they did show this during the reveal, they covered the skill bar, which is a little bit annoying. So I'm hoping to get a little bit more information about this. If anyone knows, do let me know. But it's the kind of thing that we will hop in game and test. But the big question with this is it going to be a little bit annoying to set up? Or are there going to be enough tools in the game to rapidly generate and consume charges so that you can get this infusion to then use your infused weapon? Currently, probably the easiest way to generate charges is with something like Combat Frenzy. So Combat Frenzy, it says when you electrocute, freeze, or pin an enemy, generate a frenzy charge. So you can only generate one once every 1.5 seconds or so. You can get this lower. You can also give this thing quality to have a chance to gain an additional charge, and then there's things on the tree. When you gain a charge, chance to gain up to your maximum number of, let's say, frenzy charges or power charges. So there are ways to generate charges fairly rapidly. There's also Serpent's Egg, which is an amulet. When you gain a charge, you gain an additional charge. So with this, you can be generating 2 to 3 charges fairly regularly. That's with Combat Frenzy. There's also Sniper's Mark. Marks the target, the next crit the target receives consumes the mark to deal extra damage and grant you a frenzy charge. There's also Parry, which is one of the new skills. When you successfully parry, you generate a charge. But the big question is this going to be annoying to set up, and is it going to be worth the setup? The point after it, Infused Avatar, 50% chance for infusion to not be consumed when infusing a projectile. This is just quality of life. After that, we have Predatory Instinct and In for the Kill. Reveal weaknesses against rare and unique enemies, 50% more damage against enemies with an open weakness, and then the follow-up is 20% increased movement speed and 40% increased skill speed while an enemy with open weakness is in your presence. I'm not too sure about this. From what we've seen, you'll be able to visibly see on an enemy's health bar when they are in that open weakness range. That seems to be approximately 30%-ish of the monster's health bar. If it's up to like 50% of the monster's health bar, could be really good because then it's effectively granting you 25% more damage. The question with this is, when you do get to the section of the enemy's life that is in open weakness, do you just go for one really big hit to try and maximize that 50% more damage and just like try and one-shot them? Or do you instead go for In for the Kill and just do big rapid hits? So this one is also a little bit of a question mark. It kind of reminds me of Witch Hunter and some of those Ascendancy points. Those never really felt all that good. So I'm not currently that excited for these, but these are the kinds of things that might turn out to be better than expected once you actually hop into games. Same with this. But now, the next thing that I am super excited about is this over here, Critical Strike leading into Penetrate. Critical Strike, chance to hit with attacks can exceed 100%, gain additional critical hit chance equal to 25% of excess chance to hit with attacks. Connor Converse has a really excellent video going over accuracy calculations on the Huntress, and it looks like currently the maximum chance to hit is actually 150%. 150% chance to hit with this would give you 12.5% critical strike chance. The big question a lot of people are having is this base critical strike chance or just increased? We're not 100% sure. I have to imagine it is base critical strike chance. If it is increased, it is just so obscenely bad that it doesn't make any sense for it to be an ascendancy. So 12% increased critical strike chance is just, it's so bad for what you have to invest. It has to be base crit. So for people who don't understand the difference between base crit and increased crit, so let's just have a look over here. Let's say your character has a 10% chance to deal a critical strike. If you get 100% increased chance to deal critical strikes, then you have a 20% chance to deal a crit. In this case, let's say you have a 10% chance to deal a critical strike, and then you increase that with critical strike and you get, let's say, another 10% base critical. So total, you would have a 20% chance to deal critical strikes. Now, any increases to critical strike chance would multiply this number, this base number. So if you had 10 and then you had a 200% increased critical strike chance, so we have a base crit chance plus the 200, so this would equal a 30% chance to deal a critical strike. If you instead have, let's say, 20% base critical strike chance and 200% increase, now this is pushing it up to like 60%. If this is only increased, you can see over here, if you have like a 10% base crit and then you get another 10% increase, instead of having a 30% chance to crit, you have a 31% chance to crit. So that's so incredibly bad that I can't imagine that is the case. Assuming this is the case, critical strike is ridiculously strong. What's also amazing afterwards is Penetrate. Attacks using a weapon have added physical damage equal to 25% of the accuracy rating on the weapon. The big question is, how much accuracy can you actually get on, let's say, a spear or a bow or something like that? Now, the big thing with this node over here is that you would have to use accuracy as one of your prefixes. In PoE 2, accuracy is now a prefix, so you would be losing one of your physical damage prefixes. Currently, there is flat physical damage, as in adds like 10 to 20 physical damage. You have percent increased physical damage, and then you have hybrid percent increased physical damage with an accuracy hybrid. So it's two modifiers in one. And then you also have accuracy. So if you go with this, you're very likely going to want to go with accuracy rating as your third prefix. In this case, what does this mean for our damage? So if we look over here, if you go for, let's say, flat fizz plus percent fizz, just pure percent fizz, and then an accuracy roll, and you get, let's say, the top end of 550, you're getting about 560 PDPS, physical damage per second, plus another 200 damage, flat physical damage, from the 550 accuracy, plus 250 accuracy from the sockets that you put in it. You could also go for flat fizz and then the percent hybrid accuracy physical damage, which would give you about 360 plus 250, and then another, let's say, 250 from the runes, so about 610 PDPS. And then what you need to compare this to is just going for fizz, percent hybrid, and percent fizz. And in that case, you're getting 822 PDPS. So a perfectly rolled spear with all the perfect modifiers does give you more damage, but the thing you need to remember is that your accuracy is also granting you this base crit. So if you are somehow able to just get enough crit to reach that 150% hit chance, you're getting that full 12.5%, let's assume base crit, then you would just go for a normal fizz. But what's really nice about this is it provides options to different weapons with a more varied number of modifiers. Getting a perfect pure fizz weapon like this is really, really hard. This means that you can be more flexible with your weapon modifiers. One other thing I wanted to chat about with Critical Strike and Penetrate. Currently on the tree, there's some really nice nodes down here, like Falcon Dive, 1% increase attack speed per 250 accuracy rating. So scaling your accuracy rating on your weapon and then increasing it with these percent increases and then going for Falcon Dive. You're also getting a lot of attack speed out of it. Hopefully this is still in the game next patch. And then also you might want to go for Falcon Technique, percent increased attack speed per 15 dexterity. Each point of dexterity that you do take gives you +5 accuracy rating. So if you're scaling your dex, you're scaling your accuracy, you can get Falcon Technique, you can get Falcon Dive. I assume that Hand of Wisdom in action is going to be completely gutted, but if that somehow stays, it could be another way to further scale your damage. So you'd be like dex scaling, accuracy scaling, grabbing stuff like this, grabbing stuff like that, and then just pushing a lot of damage and just getting a lot out of the dexterity and the accuracy that you do have from your class with this. With that out of the way, this I think is super, super strong. Is it going to be the first thing you take though? If you can get a weapon with a decent amount of accuracy early, you could spec into this right away, but I feel like this might be more of a late game pickup for this class. Then let's talk about some of the other stuff. So here we have Stalking Panther. Evasion rating from equipped helmet, gloves, and boots is doubled. Evasion rating from equipped body armor is halved. This thing is just screaming for you to go with Queen of the Forest. That is this chest piece over here. So 1% increased movement speed per 500 evasion rating. Other modifiers to movement speed do not apply. So this thing, it actually has a decent chunk of evasion rating. You can get this thing well over 900 evasion rating. You can go with that. It also implies that you could perhaps go with an armor base. I don't know, maybe you want to go Comb's Heart or something like that. But the evasion rating from equipped helmet, gloves, and boots is doubled is actually really, really strong because you can get really high evasion rating on all of those pieces of gear. So I checked out the trade site to see what were some of the higher end rolls of evasion rating on these different gear slots. Boots, there were only 2 pairs with over 1,000 evasion rating, but let's just say you do get something like that. That would then be pushed up to 2,000. Helmets, they roll up to 1.5 thousand. Remember, we're also getting new runes that should be able to push this higher. So getting another 1,400 from your helmet. Gloves, rolling about 700 on the top end. And then your chests, about 2,800 on the top end, but that would be reduced to 1.4k. And then with Queen of the Forest, let's just say you have one with a roll of 900 evasion rating, you're sitting at about 450 afterwards. So this first number, this 5,900, this is assuming you have all of these gear slots, these ones, with just the highest tiers of evasion rating. You're sitting at about 5,900. Then this is the same calculation with Stalking Panther, and there you're sitting at about 7,600. So getting another 1,700 evasion rating total, even with the downside. Then with Queen of the Forest, with this same gear, and instead you don't use this chest over here, you just use Queen of the Forest with about 900 evasion rating. There you're sitting at about 650. So overall, you can get more evasion rating with this than you could before. And with Queen of the Forest, this is a ton of evasion rating, which is then further scaled by percent increases on the tree and maybe other gear slots like your amulet. So Stalking Panther could be really, really good, especially with Queen of the Forest and other points on the tree. And then we have some nice recovery, and that is Azmeri Brew and Mystic Harvest. So Mystic Harvest, Life Leech, recovers based on your elemental damage as well as physical damage. So if you do go for more of an elemental based one, you can still get that recovery. And then Azmeri Brew, this is actually pretty strong. Life Flasks also recover mana. Mana Flasks also recover life. I think this could be really good for boss fights. If they're going to be more dragged out in 0.2.0, then this could be really nice just for Flask Sustain. Another thing you could do with this, Azmeri Brew, is to go for something like Vile Pact. Life Leech is instant, cannot use Life Flasks, but with one of the new uniques that we've seen, Wastegate, Life and Mana Flask can be equipped in either slot. So you could go for something like that, and then instead use this and just use 2 mana flasks, and then your mana flasks recover your life and your mana. You can go for Vile Pact for instant leech if you want to also go with Mystic Harvest as well. So that's 4 points. It's a lot of recovery, but there are these options that you can use to round out the character's defenses in interesting ways. So we got a lot of damage over here, a lot of defensive stuff over here. Overall, I'm super stoked for this class. I'm probably going to be starting this. There's also the Ritualist, which looks really interesting. The big question with this is, which points do you take first? Because it kind of feels like a little bit of an end-gamey Ascendancy where you want to have a good weapon before you take this, but this might be really good early on. This might be surprisingly good early on. The Predatory Instinct, also Critical Strike. I really like this Ascendancy. It's the right kind of Ascendancy where it's like, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and this, and this, and I have to choose. It shouldn't ever be a case where the choice is obvious. It really should be like, I want more than I can have. So let me know what you think about the Amazon. I'm thinking this looks really cool. If you're playing something else, let me know. Lich also looking really sweet. Ritualist also looking really cool. A lot of the new Ascendancies are looking great. So have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care. Catch you in the next video, and bye-bye.